Thank you all for spending your time with us this Monday morning. I know you're all very busy and have a lot of options of what to participate in and what to skip. So thank you for choosing to be here. I appreciate it. This is our monthly webinar series, Employment First, Topics and Tactics. We offer this to equip job seekers, employment professionals, families, other partners with tools and strategies so that we can all advance employment first principles across Arizona. I want to give you guys a few reminders. We have captioning available. I'm not sure if we have live captioning this morning or not, if I'm being honest. If you need any sort of technical assistance or accommodation, please reach out to the Sonoran Center name listed in the chat, and they will make sure that you are able to access all of our materials. We also always want to remind everyone, if you're speaking, and I make the same effort for myself, try not to speak too quickly, because captioning is so much smoother when we're not rushing through our words. We always start these sessions offering a land acknowledgement, and we respectfully acknowledge that the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of Indigenous people. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the Tohono O'odham and the Yaqui. We are grateful to be on this land, and we pay our respects to our elders, past and present. We also want to always gratefully acknowledge Arizona Vocational Rehabilitation, or Voc Rehab, VR. Our monthly series, as well as the full Arizona Employment First initiative, is funded by Arizona Voc Rehab, and they are working to promote competitive integrated employment for all Arizonans with disabilities. So we do this every month on the second Monday most of the time. So I hope you join us and come back for more sessions. But today, so this is like a strange and awkward transition for me. If you come every month, you know that at this point I will start to read a bio for our guest speaker, and I'll tell you all about how brilliant and wise and talented they are. Today, I'm your guest speaker. So it seems like it'd be a little weird and gratuitous for me to read my own bio. I'll share a little bit about me, but I want to take this moment to say, if you don't know me, or if you do know me and you want to get to know me better, reach out, and I'm happy to schedule time to chat with you, to talk about how we get better employment outcomes and share a little bit about why I'm so convicted on that. You'll hear it as we go through as well. So I think we're ready to get started. Are y'all in it with me? I'll say, if someone has something to say, raise your hand. Feel free to unmute, talk, whatever we need to do to have everybody be engaged, because a lot of you know me and you know that I can babble with the best of them. And I could sit here for an hour and talk about myths and employment first, because that is our topic today. And hopefully you guys are seeing the slideshow. Someone let me know if you're not. I could talk for a long time about employment first, but my goal today is not to talk at you. This needs to be an interactive discussion. I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions. As we all share how we approach this work, we can help each other and learn from each other. It's not just everybody learning from Gina. So I will give you a slight bit of my background, the super abbreviated view. I'm a social worker in my heart and by education. I have worked in the field of disabilities forever. It's all I've done. It's way too long. I'm not going to say how many years. I've been on most sides of it except for education. I've worked for DDD. I've worked for providers. I've done all the different roles in all the different provider agencies. Well, not all of them, but in some of them. And an effort to have full transparency because I think a lot of you know this anyway. I used to run sheltered workshops and segregated employment programs. So I, of all people, really understand that the journey of employment first is often a journey. And as we talk about myths and facts in employment first today, I'm gonna be really surprised if there aren't quite a few of you who don't always agree with everything I say this morning. And that's going to be okay. We don't all have to agree. We all have to respect each other. So I really want to say, as we talk about our belief structures regarding employment and what's true and what's not true, we are not here to judge. We are not here to shame. Um, I hope those of you who know me know that about me. That is never our approach. My goal is to help you all distinguish between what is misconception and what is truth, so that as you encounter those misconceptions, you have the tools to help educate others, as I know I've been educated over the years. But employment first is definitely a journey, and we're all in different places. And that applies to us as professionals and our job seekers. A huge piece to employment first is that we start where the job seeker is at. That's also true for all the professionals and advocates and stakeholders in this community. We are all where we are, and as long as we all strive to move forward, we're going to make great progress together. But there is no judgment about that. I won't judge you, and I expect you all to not judge each other. We just want to arm people with information and resources so that we can move forward. And my hope for today is that we have a bit of fun. So I tried to set this up to be in a fun format. We're gonna play a little game that, again, you all have to provide the answers. I know them because I made the presentation, and have a chance for a group discussion so we can learn from each other, and then have a call to action. So if we're ready, let's get going. And again, I'm not seeing the chat, so someone poke me, like unmute and holler at me if there's something that we need to do. As we play, I'll open up my chat and I'll check it though. Okay, so this is a really simple game. It's called Myth or Fact. I'm gonna pull up a slide and it's gonna have a statement that's a myth or a fact. So type your answer in the chat. I guess that means I do need to open it. Or if you want to unmute and say your answer, you can. And we'll have a couple minutes with each slide to talk about those responses, and maybe if someone disagrees, let's talk about why. Let's talk about where our assumptions and beliefs come from. That's a big part of our goal for the day. So let's get to it. Myth or fact? Oh, it didn't move forward like I thought it was gonna. Myth or fact? Question 1. See, I'm putting you guys to work. Not everyone with a disability can work in the community. Is that a myth or a fact, my friends? Myth, 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 myth. I'm seeing it. Okay, good. That was really kind of an easy one to start with. And we wouldn't judge, but I'd be surprised if any of you thought that was a fact. Yes, that question is, in fact, a myth. That is a myth. And here's the reason. With the right supports, everyone can work. That's our whole point. That's not saying everyone can do every job. I can't fly a plane. I can't be a rock star. There's probably lots of things you all can't do too. But there are a lot of things I can do. There are a lot of things you all can do. All people have skills, talents, and gifts to offer to the community, and they have a right to be compensated for those skills, talents, and gifts, much as we all are when we go to our jobs every day. So, with the right supports, everyone can contribute through competitive integrated employment. And when we talk about supports, we all use supports. We don't think of it that way. I was fortunate enough to attend university and earn a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Those were my supports. And I didn't do that alone. I had help. I had family that helped. I had loved ones. I had people who met with me to study. I imagine you all had similar experiences in your journeys as you've learned things through various education programs or had a dream and not known how to pursue it. And then when you seek the advice of your friends and you are engaging with your mentors, those are the same supports, right? It's not that people with disabilities need a lot of secret and special supports. Some things are very specialized, but in general, we have to acknowledge that giving people support, offering support to people so they can pursue their passions and dreams, that's something that we all have. Our society's been built that way. So we don't want to think of it as some big different thing that everyone needs support when they go to work, even people with disabilities. It's just we all need different levels and types of support. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one. You guys nailed that. These really aren't trick questions, but I'm confident that you've all heard them out in the world. I've heard them. And at times, maybe we've all questioned some of these things, but it's good to get on the same page. So here's a good one. Employment first means people must work full time. If we're out there saying everyone has to work, if someone works 30 hours, oh, you guys are nailing it. I'm seeing the chat. It's a myth. So do people is there a time limit? Let me ask you that. Is there a minimum number of hours that people need to work? No, exactly. Well, we see it, it's all our experts answering. Yeah, there is not a minimum amount of time that someone has to work. Employment first means employment is where we want people to be, but we're not describing specifically what that looks like, and it's not one size fits all. I work from home. Some could argue that's not integrated because I'm alone in a room all day. Some of us work in settings where there are a lot of people doing different tasks than what we do. Some of us work in settings where all the people in our building are doing the same type of work. It's all different for all people, and that also applies to people with disabilities. And there are folks who think when we say employment that that's 40 hours, and if it's not 40 hours, it's not successful. And that's not true. Some people might do better at 32. I have one of my kids works about 34 hours a week, and that's what he does, and that's what works for him, and that's what his job requires, right? It's finding those matches about what a person can do and what the right job is for them to be successful. Some people might work 5 hours or 10 hours, and if that's what works for them, that's okay. But we're offering supports and opportunities so that people are able to pursue their dreams. And all of us have dreams that look different. So that's okay. Okay. Question 3. This is a big one. People who receive benefits cannot work or they will lose their benefits. See, I got like the good audience today. And if any of you were quietly in your head thinking something different than the answers you see in the chat, that's okay. It's why we're having the discussion. because there are a lot of folks out here in the world who haven't had access to all of the information that we've had. So, you are all correct. This is a myth. People can work and maintain benefits, maintain health care. There's not a hard and fast answer as to how long and what that looks like and what the level is. That is individualized. But Social Security wants people to work. There are a variety of work incentives that exist that help people maintain benefits. When people work, yes, their cash benefits will decrease, but their earned income from work will increase faster than their cash benefits decrease. And there are so many amazing opportunities for people to maintain health care. And then they also get all the other benefits that come with working, the sense of purpose and the sense of belonging in the community, and pride that we all feel from doing our work. So, if this is a particularly interesting myth to you all and you want to learn more, I'll give you a teaser that our January topics and tactics session will be on work and benefits. So we have a great guest speaker who will come in and give you all sorts of tips and tricks. There are also a lot of other resources on this topic. We have some things posted on our website. Reach out if you need the resources, but be sure to join us January 12th. I think it's January 12th, for that session. You can register now. Okay, myth or fact? You guys are all ready. You're paying attention. I'm excited you're not watching morning TV. People with disabilities should start thinking about work in high school or around age 16. Okay, see, I'm tricking a lot of you guys today. I'm gonna tell you it's a myth. They should start before. Tim Stump, you got it right. The chat's scrolling by fast, so I'm not seeing all of it. I know, I was tricking you. It was getting boring though. It was all these really obvious myths, right? Employment first needs to start um, employment needs to start being discussed with folks in early childhood. We ask all sorts of little kids what they want to be when we grow up. But in general, we don't ask little kids with disabilities what they want to be when they grow up. And when we are talking to our nieces or nephews or kids or grandkids or neighbors, whoever's in your life, and we're saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're starting people thinking about employment. We're setting an expectation that when I grow up, I'm going to go to work. But for some reason, societally, we don't do that with kids with disabilities. We don't do that through our education system, and we don't do it socially, and it holds people back. So, yeah, sorry, I tricked you. I didn't want them all to be too easy. We need to start when kids are little. We need to start in preschool. We need to have dress up boxes and books about careers and open up the possibilities. That's the point in early childhood, is anything is possible. Like that's what we tell little kids, right? When you grow up, you can do anything you want. We start making the sky the limit. And we need to do that with young people with disabilities as well. Career awareness, skill building, and there's so many things that we all do with our families, the way we were all raised. We give kids chores, we give kids consequences, we lay out expectations. And then what happens next depends on what the young person has done. Did they take the trash out? Did they need prompting? These are things that we just kind of do, and we often leave out our young people with disabilities. So, strategically, Employment First wants to tackle that early childhood component, and we'll get there over time. Okay, what's our next one? Because I don't remember the order of these. Oh, this is another easy one. Employment in a sheltered workshop or a CBE is not competitive integrated employment. Yeah, you see the answers. It is not competitive integrated employment. This is a fact on your screen. Um, and this is where I say without judgment for anyone's belief if people disagree, but it's not competitive, it's not integrated, and it's employment training. Um, that's how the service specs are written. That's not just my opinion. That's what it says. They are training environments. Um, so we don't consider that as an employment outcome. So when folks have an employment plan, and I know historically, previously in time, I'm hoping it's not still something that's happening. That might be someone's goal on their IEP, employment in center-based employment or sheltered workshop or work center, or there's a lot of different names that these go for. Tim says, I hope not. I hope not too, but I know in the past that's been the case. And I think as everyone is moving along on the employment first journey together, that progress is being made in that way. That is not still something folks are listing as an employment goal. Um, but we're still educating people to make sure that that's not the case. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Families, providers, state agencies, advocates, and employers are all key partners in employment first. See, this was a good, easy one. Fact, fact, fact. So that's all of us, every single one of you. Even people who don't work in this field, random strangers on this street, we are all responsible for employment first. We are only going to be successful in moving employment first forward when we collaborate. Collaboration unites our message, it creates strength, it builds expectation amongst all of us, amongst job seekers, within the community. We create opportunities when we work together, and we create consistency in our support. And we know our systems are not all in alignment yet. They're actively working on it. We're all actively working on it. But the consistency is something we know we need to still work on. So we're all putting strategic, conscious effort into that collaboration so that we are offering the support and resources that folks will benefit the most from. You guys are rocking this. Employment first. So this is two statements, but they both have the same answer. Employment first only applies to adults, or employment first only applies in transition services. Are either of those true? Myth, myth, myth. That is correct. But there have been approaches that don't consider it that way. Employment first is very often tied to transition, which is fantastic because we have to have an employment first philosophy, and we get better transition outcomes when we do that. Sometimes adults get left out of that conversation, and we forget that we have folks in their 30s and 40s and 50s who've been in work training activities, and employment first still applies to them. And as we spoke about a little bit ago, it applies to young folks who still aren't ready to go to work. I am not saying we should have child labor. Kids don't need to go to work, but we need to set those employment expectations nice and early. So employment first is intended to be kind of a birth through all of life until folks retire. And if you have retired, you had employment first, right? That's how you got to retire. So that is our philosophy on it, that it's all ages and all aspects of our lifespan. And you know, some of you may know folks who are in their 40s or 50s who've been in a day program and not had exposure to work. Doesn't mean they don't want to, and it doesn't mean they can't. We need to go back and revisit and see what are people's dreams, who was left behind before we started this movement. Because a lot of people were. And I feel like this might be my last one. We'll find out. The only people who can make employment first a reality are state leaders. Myth, 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 myth. Oh, you guys are good. I made these far too easy, apparently. That is a myth. It takes all of us at every level. We're all responsible for it. Our state leaders have to be bought in, and they are. We're good. Um, and then there's still a lot of work to do. So awesome. You guys rocked that. I took longer than I meant to. And you were quiet. You still made me do all the talking. So now we're going to move into a group discussion. We're going to spend maybe 7 or 8 minutes on each slide. And I've got kind of some talking points that I really hope we have as a discussion. So we've got 3 slides for this. Please, please, please engage. Um, because you all have brilliant ideas too, and you're going to learn from each other far more than just from me. But our umbrella is how we're talking about employment first myths and where all those employment first myths come from so that we can combat them and give people the valid information to counter those misconceptions. So our first piece is going to talk about understanding what our beliefs and our expectations are. So we all grew up and got to where we are now and had different messages about disability that we heard growing up. And I'll start by briefly sharing mine, which is probably how I ended up in this field. I grew up in a very, very, very rural farm town in Illinois. And I went to a rural farm school. And our whole school was kindergarten through 8th grade. And I had 12 kids in my class. And it was the same 12 kids every single year. It didn't change. When I moved to Phoenix, boy, was I shell shocked. But I think a gift I received as a child, and I didn't realize it, was that one of my classmates had a fairly significant disability. And to this day, I don't know what, because they didn't tell us. She was just one of our classmates. And I think because we were in such a rural environment, there were no other schools to ship her off to. She was in class with us. She was pulled out from time to time for speech and therapy. Um, we realized because she would just leave class from time to time. But she was normally with us. So when we had birthday parties and sleepovers, everyone invited her. There were only 12 kids in our class. You didn't leave anyone out. So I kind of grew up in inclusion, not knowing it was inclusion. It wasn't labeled, it wasn't a thing, and no one made a big deal out of it. It was just how we grew up. Everybody does all the things, we don't leave folks behind. So I'm curious about what types of messages you all had, without going too deep into our life stories, but things that you think impact your thinking here. I see Stephanie's hand.
So I kind of have, I guess, an interesting one, if you will, in that K-8 school, we never really had individuals with disabilities in our schools. Excuse me. I don't recall seeing students, special classrooms, any of that. Sorry, bad timing. I don't remember seeing any individuals in our schools. We would have students that needed speech that were pulled out from class, but we never really had individuals with, more of an intellectual disability or any of that. And then I got to high school, and it was a fluke one day where I happened to have PE first thing in the morning. And I would see this group of students come in, and it was clear that they had disabilities, many of them intellectual disabilities and so forth. And they had a separate PE teacher and a separate PE class. And I'm like, well, where are these kids during the day? Like, they're not in my classes. I don't see them. I don't, like, what is happening? There was a basement. And so their class was in the basement of the administration building, and no one ever saw them. They didn't have lunch with us. They didn't have anything. And I kind of went, well, that's weird. What? And that's where it got my wheels spinning too. Like, wait, this isn't right. What's happening? What's going on? And, I had grown up in a community around people with disabilities. And so it was interesting that, I mean, yes, I'm old, but that not that long ago, it was still the case. And so it always got me thinking, like, well, where did these students go K-8? because they weren't with us, or at least to my knowledge, they weren't with us. So that was my experience.
And those messages shape us, right? Something in you had you question it, but a lot of people would be like, so that's what we do with people with disabilities. They hang out in the basement. Like that ends up influencing our society and then the decisions we make as adults. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. Tim said in the chat, my father had a coworker get hurt on the job. I asked my father what would happen to him, and he said he would go to voc rehab and find a way to get back to work. Well, Tim, that must have influenced you since you've worked for voc rehab for as it seems like forever. I'm sure you haven't really worked there forever, but these are the things that influence us. Yes, Tim says. Forever. Okay, Tim's really worked there forever. He started it. And Celeste says we took care of my uncle who had severe mental health struggles. We saw struggles, but also he finished a degree as an OR, I think, operating room technician, and worked in a hospital setting with support. And the high school had students that had various capabilities, both physical and cognitive. So that early interaction with people who have different disabilities can really shape us. Bill also went to a K grade school and never saw kids with disabilities. See, these are interesting messages that when we really stop and think about how they impact us as adults, like throughout our life, like we don't often sit and reflect, like what was that? Because it changes how we view things though, and it establishes those societal myths. Most people didn't have interaction with folks with disabilities growing up. Kara raised her hand.
Hi, yes, this is Kara speaking. I just, I can kind of relate to some of the what is shared as far as just the exposure and seeing, your student peers in your classroom. It was a little mixed because I grew up, two different places on the Navajo reservation and then also in northern Arizona and Flagstaff. And so I kind of saw a little bit of both where, sometimes they were in the class, sometimes not, and, separated. And I acquired my disability at a young age. I was 12, and I just found it, there were success stories of voc rehab, and I was able to go to school, and I do have a graduate degree, but where I seem to have a struggle was I made it through school. I did really well, but it was just finding employment. It was just that barrier of like, who do I talk to? How do I, I had these dreams of I'm going to do this with this undergraduate degree, and then with my graduate degree, I'm going to do this. And then there was just like a dead end, it felt like. And so I just did something completely different, worked from home remotely for a very long time. And then now I'm in, working in independent living, and it's also brand new. So I feel like I'm starting all over again. So I think it's just I found that the barrier for me was at a young age, I didn't have peer support. I didn't really learn advocacy, self advocacy. And that's just been, a sensitive topic.
Well, we are happy that you're at the Silk Kara and you're doing amazing things. So thank you for sharing. That was awesome. Okay, and Alexis says, I grew up going to my mother's work. She was a teacher's aide for over 30 years. I felt like it was normal to be around the students with disabilities. Those experiences and exposures are what led me to have a passion for working with the population as a job coach for over 8 years and now as a VR specialist. Thank you for sharing. That is spectacular. Um, Fiona says, I was one of those kids that got extra help to learn reading in elementary school and found out in community college that I had a learning disability. I also had a number of experiences with others with disability, a cousin who was hard of hearing and signing with her mom while playing Uno. Oh, that's cool. Working with students with disabilities while in grad school and interning at community college. It's fantastic. Jessica said she had the same experience as Stephanie. But it was a couple of small rooms in the tech wing rather than the basement. In eighth grade, she was assigned as community activity to volunteer in those classes. So it shapes us. Look at, we all had some exposure and look what we do for a living. Elvia, and I'm sorry if I said your name, says my aunt had Down syndrome. When she married my husband, had an uncle who was also had Down syndrome as well. So a person with disability was always, oh, and the chat moved and now I lost it. Integrated into our families. I love everybody is sharing their stories. I'm going to let you guys read them. I'm not going to keep reading them to you, but keep sharing. I think that's great. And then my next, and I'm just going to go ahead and populate the two other points under this topic together, is how our expectations, low or high, influence outcomes, and how strengths-based planning can impact employment services. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think we all know when we have expectations that are just above the floor, and people get to just above the floor. When we have expectations without limit, people thrive and grow and exceed anything we could have imagined. That's been my experience over time, which means when we're planning in employment services, we want to look at strengths. And we have a habit as a system of saying, you're not good at this, so let's beat it forever and ever. Let's beat that drum beat of this thing you're not good at, which who wants to do something they're not good at over and over? We all work based on our strengths. I had a job once in sales. I'm terrible at sales. It was not my strength. It wasn't something I was going to learn with enough training. It wasn't the right job for me. Um, and I imagine you all have very similar experiences with yourselves and your loved ones. So, does anyone else have anything to share just about our beliefs and how we end up embracing the beliefs we embrace? But it's helpful when we kind of look back historically in our own lives to see what are the experiences? Why do I think what I think? What got me here? Because sometimes what gets us there isn't actually right, and it helps us if we need to undo some of that. Thank you all for sharing. That was spectacular. Okay, so how do we debunk the myths in real time? So I'm curious, and we played our little game earlier, and I talked about some of the common myths. What types of myths are you all still encountering? I know I hear regularly just that people with significant disabilities can't work. I still hear it. I still encounter a lot of people who believe it. Um, that I think is one of the most common ones, that there are people who can't work, and that is definitely a myth. Um, so we want to keep dispelling it. So Tim hears people with this disability can't do this particular job. Yeah, that's always fun, right? Because people tend to say autism means X or Down syndrome means the person will be a certain way. And I know I've always liked to say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because boy, that's a really big spectrum. Down syndrome's still a really big spectrum. What different people can do, um, what people can do can be impacted by their disability, but just like all people, we all have different things we're good at and different things we're not good at and different things we enjoy. Um, It's just the way it goes. Bill says Voc Rehab has a great historical story of a young man who utilized the self-employment program and started a kettle corn business and became so successful he later hired his parents to manage a second kettle corn business and accessed a small business association loan based on his successful achievement of success. And Adam asked if it's Pop and Joe's. There are a couple of folks selling popcorn out there in the world. I have pre-made kettle corn in my kitchen. It's a very popular item. Loretta says people with disabilities will need too many accommodations that are expensive in order to do the job. That's a good one, and I didn't put it in the game. And accommodations are, there are expensive accommodations. Don't get me wrong. An elevator is very expensive. Most accommodations are free. Accommodations with cost, what's the average? Less than $400 or $500 is the average cost of an accommodation. And as technology advances, I feel like there are even more and more resources to help accommodate people. So that was a good one, Loretta. Thank you. I also hear the benefits myth an awful lot, and I've worked in that arena, so maybe that's why. But well, I'll pop up my other questions about.
Gina,
Yes,
can I just say one thing real quick on that?
yes.
Um, and I think part of it too is, I mean, it's myth, yes, but you hear it because the myth starts at such a young age. And I think it really stems from our, say, transition aged youth, but it really stems from kindergarten. And it's really having those conversations with parents and families to help them understand the options that are available. Because I think that's a lot of what stifles employment first and stifles employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities is the lack of awareness and the lack of planning and prior just foundational building in terms of information for families. So I think that is a myth that is probably one of our biggest barriers because if we can, kind of quell that myth at an early age, then we'll see greater outcomes across the board.
Absolutely. And I don't know how often when I was in the service provider world and transition age youth, their family, they would come with their families and look at our campuses and our services and programs, and how many parents said, my kid can't work. And I thought, well, why would you say that? I don't even understand those words. And most of the time I could talk them into trying a work support program, and the kid did really well. Sometimes I couldn't talk them into it. There's a lot of other reasons that people have fear of the community and whatnot, but it's a very, very common thing. And it's about expectations. It's where our innate beliefs come in, and we really have to look at why do we think what we think? What got us here? Because that impacts our ability to have high or low expectations. And Kelly says if an individual happens to have a behavior while working, we hear, see, this person isn't ready for work versus trying to understand what the individual is trying to convey via their behavior. Maybe the job's boring or not a good match. Very true, Kelly. Fiona says the fact that we have mostly full guardianship here in Arizona instead of limited guardianship. You are so right. We have a lot of guardianship in Arizona. Our approach is something that a lot of people are looking into because it is not the norm everywhere else. If y'all aren't aware of that, there are other options, and other states do it differently. But in Arizona, we go to guardianship. We immediately go to no rights. Let's take away your rights. Which is kind of a scary thought from a civil rights standpoint. Oh, Oh, I guess that was all of them. I thought I had another bullet on that one, but I guess not. Um, we just have to make sure that we're responding. When people say things that aren't true, we have to counter with the facts. We have to, again, no judgment, no shaming to people. Because people believe what they believe for a reason. It's rooted in something. And if we are judgment and wagging our fingers, if we're judgmental and wagging our fingers, they're not going to come along for the ride with us at all. If our goal is to bring people along and to open doors and create opportunity, we can't be judgmental and shaming towards people who have different beliefs. We have to look at what those roots are historically for them, where the limits on expectations come from, so we can try to build past that. And Bill says parents have fear because of a lack of knowledge of the supports and our success stories. There's often been a barrier for people with disabilities because as parents, we all want to protect our kids when often we are hindering them. It's true. Parents are afraid of the community. It's a scary place for a lot of parents. And Stephanie shares that RSA has published 36 success stories just since January. Feel free to share that link. Employment First is going to be focusing on sharing success stories. I know APSI is as well, because that's one of our key ingredients to success is showing that it's possible. Because once people see, oh, it is possible, a lot of those long held beliefs start to disintegrate when they see that those beliefs aren't rooted in fact. So, one more. Shared responsibility and action. See, you knew how this was going to go. Now I want y'all to do things. So, what role can stakeholders and job seekers and families and schools and providers and employers and our state agencies play in promoting employment first? I'm just going to click all my bubbles, even though I worked so hard on these transitions. Um, what makes our collaboration hard and how can we make it easier? And is there one mindset shift or practical step that you can take from our conversations? And now you're all going to be quiet because it's the shared responsibility slide. I'm kidding. I know how hard you all work on this. Um, can we quickly discuss other options to guardianships and conservatories, other states versus AZ? I want to say yes, but I'm not the expert. But what I would love to do is feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss this more. But maybe that's a topic that we need to look at moving forward, what all that looks like. And there are experts in this state, so I will make a note of that. Maybe that's a future session, because I have very limited knowledge and you don't want my limited knowledge. You want an actual subject matter expert talking about it. So we will work on that as we're planning January's. Thank you so much. And it is important that it impacts more in people's lives than we generally realize when we talk about it. So that was a great idea.
And and Gina, I'm not an expert either, but I can share having come because I worked in another state. In the state I worked in, I very, very rarely saw full guardianships. What I saw were what we called limited conservatorships. So the guardian, so to speak, only had decision-making power over some areas of the person's life, not all areas of the person's life. So when I came here and I'm seeing almost everything is a full guardianship, that was a bit of a culture shock for me. But answering your question, Gina, I think one of the things I'm seeing as I'm working with folks is I, that people are interested in how to support folks, but they just don't know how. So it's a matter of helping them understand what all the accommodations that are available are, so they have those resources in their pocket and they know how to work with folks better that way. So I think it's just a matter of giving folks the resources they need to be able to provide the support. I think most people in this field want to help. They just maybe don't see how.
Agreed. Absolutely. And I think that applies to families and employers as well, because our system's complicated. Systems navigation is one of our barriers. Um, there's those of us who are passionate and in it, and we get it. We get the services and supports. We get the application processes and the referral processes. And sometimes we even get confused because there are nuances. And how do you request an accommodation and what kinds of accommodations are available and how do you get job coach support? Like we know these things, but the average person out there in the world doesn't understand them. And simplifying our systems, simplifying our information, will go a long way to debunking a lot of these myths for sure. And in the chat, Cheryl says transportation's difficult in smaller cities and rural areas. This is true. There are transportation barriers in big cities as well. Transportation is just not something we do well in Arizona across the board. And she also says supported decision making can be set up with a notary signature. That is something we have in Arizona on that guardianship conversation as an alternative to guardianship. So we're going to get a session on that. That was such a good idea. Adam says the one thing I heard a number of years ago that I have adopted, stolen, liberated, Adam, the word's liberated, is that we need to stop asking, do you want to work, and start asking, what do you want to do for work? Absolutely. Because we don't ask people without disabilities, do you want to work? Like that would be appalling. Most of us would be just dumbfounded if, you take a graduating class of high school seniors and then you say to them, do you want to work now that you've graduated? Like, we wouldn't do that. We have to stop treating people with disabilities so differently and start having those same expectations. What do you want to do for work? What's interesting to you? And Bill loves all of it, so that's a good thing. Um, Anything else on this, you guys? Collaboration's hard. Bill says, remember the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Yep, everyone needs that question. All children need to hear that question. So as we move into a holiday season where whatever you celebrate, unless you don't celebrate anything, if you celebrate stuff, you're going to probably encounter people in your family or friend group with their small children. Ask them all what they want to be when they grow up. No matter what, ask every child. That's how we set the expectation. And we're going to keep collaborating, even though it's hard. We know it's hard. Um, and it's hard for bureaucratic reasons, and it's hard for logistical reasons. And it's hard because sometimes, although our missions are generally aligned, they're not precisely aligned, and we have to navigate through systems that have kind of different goals, and have everybody come together for this shared goal. But we're going to keep doing it. And I'm grateful for you all sharing your ideas on it. Okay, so the call to action. This is how we collectively debunk all of the myths. And it's that we do all the things we need to do. Oh, I messed up my transition. Share this webinar series because we're here trying to consistently debunk the myths and educate and provide resources, simplifying those resources, helping folks navigate the system. Those are the types of things we're working on in this webinar series. So keep coming to it. Have other people come to it. I will remind everyone that we record almost every session. At some point this session will have captioning added, and it'll be on the website. We have on our webpage almost all of the previous sessions. If it's not recorded, we usually explain why. We just launched an Employment First newsletter. It will be coming out quarterly. I hope you all received it last week. If you didn't, there's a link here to sign up for it because this webinar is going to be posted. So the PowerPoint will be there and you can have whatever you need. And look, the awesome Sonoran Center team sharing all the links for things that you guys need. So the newsletter will be there to help provide those resources and those tools. That's our goal. We really, and Stephanie touched on this earlier, we want to share success stories because it's the best way to help people who aren't yet convinced move along the journey with us. Is by showing them what is possible. So we do want to hear your success stories. I know Arizona APSI wants to hear your success stories. Voc Rehab and DDD, like everybody wants to hear your success stories. Share them with us. Our email address is there, employmentfirst@arizona.edu. We will give presentations. We will meet with you one-on-one. We will help you find resources. That's why we're here. Whatever you need to help advance Employment First, reach out to us, and that's what we're here for. So hit us up for whatever, engage with us. That's what we want. And then I have the link for Arizona APSI. If you're unfamiliar, I'll be surprised, but if you're unfamiliar, APSI is the Arizona Association of People Supporting Employment First. There's a national association as well. It is a membership organization. They have a lot of training, a lot of resources, and we work very closely, Arizona Employment First and Arizona APSI, to try to move this initiative forward because we have exactly the same goal. So we do get to work very closely. Bill's asking if the link is correct, and I'm not sure. So I'm going to hope so. I'm going to really, really hope so. What if it's on my PowerPoint that looks wrong, let me know and I'll check it before we post it. And Alexa says, thank you. Sedona is the vice chair of APSI and has posted her email address in the chat, if that is somehow helpful. So we have questions and discussion, and all my contact information will be on the slides once that is posted on our website. Any last thoughts? That, wow, got us to the whole hour. You guys are so good. Any more thoughts? Bye, Tim. If not, you guys have a great week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Second week of December. I don't know how that happened. It's crazy. Okay, take care, friends.
Thank you.
Mhm.